Grab a cup of tea or a glass of wine and tune in for Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. On Tuesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern, Linda creates sacred space for leading female luminaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. A soulful venue where guests openly share the fears and obstacles they've overcome, wisdom and lessons learned, and the personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic, soulful living.
Welcome to Inspired Conversations, my friends. I'm your host, Linda Joy, publisher of Aspire magazine that is now celebrating 17 years of inspiring, empowering, and supporting women in living their best lives and guiding them on their journey of self-discovery. If you haven't grabbed your free subscription, I invite you to do so now at subscribe2aspire.com. So, sometimes there are things that happen in our lives that we come to believe may be our darkest days. But there are so many times, and I've discovered it myself, that our darkest days lead to some of the most sacred gifts we can ever experience. And if you've ever wondered if you can be healed by loved ones who are on the other side, the answer is yes. And Suzanne Falter was, after her daughter Teal suddenly died from an unexplainable cardiac arrest. And I've known Suzanne for a long time and have followed this journey. It was Teal's wish before her passing to become a healer. And in reality, she did. Suzanne tells her story in this riveting episode, which will help you realize there truly is an afterlife. Suzanne is a writer, podcaster, and essayist whose work has been featured in Self, O Magazine, More, Tiny Buddha, and the New York Times. She is the host of the Self-Care for Extremely Busy Women and has been heard widely on podcasts and radio, including Coast to Coast AM. She's the author of multiple self-help titles, including the Extremely Busy Woman's Guide to Self-Care. And I am excited to share and have her on the show today to talk about her recently released Free Spirited, How My Daughter Healed Me from the Afterlife. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I've been watching your journey for many years. I just love your writing. You've written for Aspire in the past, especially about self-care. But as a woman, I've watched your personal journey. And you've always been an inspiration to me because you went through one of the hardest experiences any woman can go through. And to see you like shining the light and carrying on Teal's legacy brings me such joy.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. So why don't we go back there? Tell us about your late daughter, Teal, and why her story matters now.
Well, thanks for asking, because Teal really did become a healer, just not in an embodied human form. And yet in her life, she actually was something of a healer because she was a very free spirit, complete free spirit. She passed away when she was 22. And when she was 18 years old, she started doing two things, singing the blues and traveling the world. And she was a great singer, really great. I have a little video of her singing on my website. And, she could just really connect with people through her music. But what she would do is she had a little travel guitar and she'd make a little money as a waitress. And then she would go to an airport with a little cash in her pocket. And she'd just pick a place and go. And she might spend the night when she got there in the airport if she couldn't figure out how to get into town. She went all over the world doing this. She taught children in Ghana. She worked on a farm in Belgium. She did all kinds of interesting things. And the whole time, she became more and more deeply spiritual. And, she had gone to the Berklee College of Music in Boston, as a matter of fact, for a couple of years to study the blues and study singing. But what's interesting is one day she called me up and she said, I'm going to leave school because actually, Mom, I'm supposed to be a healer. And I'm about to get my healing gift. And thought that was interesting. And let's just say I was not an awakened person at that time. I was a workaholic striver, focus on the money, get things done, and get people to fall in line with my agenda. Teal, however, was the opposite. And I didn't pay a lot of attention to what she was talking about. I was kind of, oh, that's nice, honey. Well, then she had an experience in Morocco that actually gave her what she felt was her healing gift. I actually wrote about it in Free Spirited. It was such an unbelievable story. And in it, now Teal had epilepsy, which is very important to the story because epilepsy is like an electrical circuitry issue in the brain. And her particular epilepsy, which was well controlled most of the time by medication, helped her have visions and feel closer to God. And she thought she was going to have a seizure. And she lay down on a bed in a hostel. And for 24 hours, she slept. And during that time, she had a vision of two huge snakes wrapping themselves around her body. Now, the imagery of entwined snakes is the symbol of healing used since the ancient Greeks. And she came out of that feeling like she'd been given a healing gift. And a friend of hers, a childhood friend of hers, was with her and stayed by her bedside the whole time and said when she woke up, she was just completely lit up. She was a totally different person. And she had been given a gift of healing. So she comes back to San Francisco, where I live. And, neither of us really know, what does this mean? And she says, I'm going to take college courses. So she enrolls in a bunch of kind of esoteric courses at a local college. And she was going to start those the day after she collapsed from a medically unexplainable cardiac arrest. People with epilepsy usually don't have a cardiac arrest from a seizure, like really don't. And it's still unknown whether she had a seizure because she was alone. The medical examiner kept her tissue for 2 years and was never able to give her a cause of death. All I know is I went to a lecture about shamanism the night she collapsed with her. She was a little spacey, but she was there. And every time the speaker talked about the shamanic connection between death and between the afterlife and the human world, she would turn around and stare at me as if to say, are you getting this, mom? Mom, pay attention. This is really incredible. And I didn't think much of it. But then 2 hours later, after we'd said goodnight, I get this call that she's in critical condition. And in fact, she was on life support and she died 6 days later. Then the healing began, because while I was in the hospital room with her and looking at her stretched out on this bed, covered all these monitors and wires and wrappings and so much stuff, as she was lying there, and I had just encountered my daughter, with whom I had just had dinner only 3 hours earlier at that point, I knew she was going to die. I was going to become the healer, and that everything in my whole life was going to change because I had to be healed first. And not long after that, she started showing up for me energetically, just a few days later, as a matter of fact. And she was reassuring from the other side. I can share lots of messages with you, but that's who Teal was. And in her lifetime, she was a free-spirited, fun, joyous person. She had a special knack for finding four-leaf clovers. She could pick one anywhere she was and give them to people. And she was deeply compassionate. Her nickname was Kuan Yin. And that's my Tealie.
It's so beautiful. It's like just the words you use to describe her. I can feel her. I can feel her energy. I can feel like she just radiates love. That's the energy I'm getting.
That's it. And, she was so sensitive that I think life was kind of hard for her. A therapist she worked with later told me, I asked her, I said, if you are willing to tell me, what was it that you focused on with Teal? And she said, how to bear the intensity of life. Everything was, she felt everything so deeply. And it's why she was a blues singer.
Yeah, she just had that wide open heart and spirit.
That's
And
it.
and I think it also honed her compassion, right? Because she felt so deeply, she had so much more compassion and empathy for others.
Yeah, after her death, her voice teacher at Berkeley sent us a wonderful letter, and it said it was her deep compassion for other people's struggles that really gave her such an authentic feel to her singing.
There's so many blessings through all of this. I'm curious, before we go to the first break, is in that moment that you got that feeling in the hospital room that you were about to become the healer, but you had to be healed first. Because of where you were energetically in your own life, the overachiever, the type A, did that just drop in as truth? Then, when it did the ego go, "What are you talking about? What?" Did you have that?
No, oh my
You just
God.
knew?
It was an all body God shot. There was no questioning it. And, I had not always been, I would say divorced from my heart as I was at that time. I had been a much more deeply connected spiritual person. I had channeled for people. I had done healing work in my 20s. And then I got interested in, the money. And I was really going for that. And I lost my values. After her death, I had this intense period of 2 years of grief where, I really knew the whole time, I really knew, and I continue to know, there was a larger purpose for this death, as there always is, of course, but we can't always see it. This was really clear. And that I needed to work on myself. So I was grieving and working on myself. And one of the first things I did was define my values, or try to define my values. And at first, I didn't even know what they were. It took me a while. And, really understanding now that there are so many, so many more things in life more important than, quote unquote, the money.
Beautiful way to segue to our break. I think so many of us can resonate with that one statement of "there's so much more than money in life," right? So we're going to talk about that and so much more. We'll be back in a moment. I am with Suzanne Falter. You can learn more at SuzanneFalter.com. Be sure to grab a copy of Free Spirited, How My Daughter Healed Me from the Afterlife. We'll be back in a moment, my friends.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Inspiration for a woman's soul. Aspire Magazine, inspiring and supporting women on the path of self-discovery. Claim your free digital subscription today, which includes access to thousands of dollars of personal development bonus gifts from Team Inspiration partners. Claim your Aspire Magazine subscription today at subscribetoaspire.com.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
Consistently attract soulmate clients, begin showing up on brand, monetizing on your calling. Welcome all spiritual coaches, leaders, healers, light workers, and practitioners to a show that turns you on in your business and amplifies your magnetism. I'm host, catalyst, and spiritual business coach Rosalind Fung, and I'm here to journey with you into the juicy and help you discover where the real gaps are. Ignite your mindset and soul with strategies and systems as each episode takes you to the sweet spot that activates your soulgasmic business by tuning in on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Mountain. Join me for your light language activation, and let's magnetize and monetize.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. I am so grateful to have Suzanne Falter here with me today. She is here sharing her daughter's legacy of healing from the afterlife and even before, her daughter Teal, and how it not only transforms Suzanne's life, but how the ripple effect it's having on so many others. So as your journey unfolded, Suzanne, from that moment in the hospital room, and followed by 2 years of reconnecting with your spiritual roots, was you hearing from Teal consistently? How was that relationship with her on the other side unfolding for you?
Well, the first appearance was while she was still in a coma. She was in a coma. Let me just say she collapsed and was without a heartbeat for 15 minutes. So it was a miracle that she was even revived, which she was, but she was never conscious again. And she was in this sort of limbo between life and death for about 6 days. And on the third day, her father and her brother had joined me. At that point, we were divorced, and we were all in a hotel room together going through this crisis, and I woke up in the middle of the night, and there she was. There she was it was energetic. I felt this sparkly, tingling, electrical, joyful presence around me. And something told me it was Teal. And I said, Teal? Hi, Mom, she said. And the crazy thing was, I was then flooded with knowing. And I could hear her saying to me, everything's great. Everything's wonderful. Don't give it a thought. And, just go with the flow. Big thing, Mom, don't rush me. Meaning, because I asked her, I said, well, what are you going to do? Don't rush me. She said, I'm trying to reconcile my heart and my soul. I had no idea what that meant. So I blessed her and she went on her way. And, as it turned out, she really needed to die at that moment. Her body had been really destroyed by the cardiac arrest. And yet, crazy thing, her heart was still fully functional. It was her brain that had gotten the real damage. So her heart and her kidney were donated to a young woman just a little older than her. And that's a story for another moment in this interview, perhaps. But to answer your question, I started connecting with her again after that appearance about a month later. And we moved through the grief and the, memorial services and all that kind of stuff. And I was back in Northern California and I was driving. That seemed to be very soothing to me. So I was driving around the wine country in my little Honda Fit called the Tealster, because that had been her nickname. And she and I had decided it would be a funny nickname to give the car before she died. And, I'm driving around the Tealster sobbing. And all of a sudden, and I'm playing my iPod Shuffle. This was 10 years ago, for those of us who wonder why the heck I even had a shuffle, but I did. And it had a couple thousand songs on it, and 12 of them were of Teal singing. So I was thinking about her, and the shuffle comes on with a randomly selected song, and it's her singing. And she's singing a song about being an angel. And it was such a abrupt, like, oh my gosh, it feels like she's here. And then all of a sudden I felt that tingly energy again. So it began as a tingly energy. Then, I kept trying to take myself out of my grief and just like go do things, because I was an overachiever. So I thought, well, I can't work, but I can hike. So maybe 8 months into my grief. No, it's actually more like 3 months into my grief. I tried to get myself to go to a hike, and I'm driving to this trailhead with this group of people, that I'd never met. It was like a meetup for hiking. And I'm driving, and all of a sudden I feel the tingly presence. And I'm like, oh, Teal, you're back. You're back. Oh, great. Oh, goody. What do I need to know? What do I need to know? And all of a sudden, this high-pitched, what I call a silvery, kind of metallic feeling laughter came pouring out of my mouth. And it was this Teal energy. And it was affirmation to the fact that she was there. And that little laugh continues to this day when she wants to affirm something. I do these healing readings. And when I read, often the laugh is there. And it's unfortunate because people are like telling me these, deep things. And then there's laughter erupts and they're like, why are you laughing? I'm like, I'm not laughing. But it's an affirmation of her presence and her, yes, you're on the right track. That's correct. So the laughter has been, may I just say, a little unusual. And I've really come to love the Teal energy. She's also appeared to me in a number of visions. The visions have been really amazing. And then the other thing is through her journal, of course. And she left behind this tattered little notebook, little spiral notebook, very simple, like everything in her life, extremely simple. And in it, is a lot of channeled information she got before she died.
That just having her journal has to be such a cherished gift, because it's like you can tap into her at any time, her thoughts, her energies, her everything she was feeling. That has to be something that is so sacred to you.
I learned so much about it, Linda. And the first thing you read when you open this notebook, there's a little quote up in the corner she wrote. It says, "You will be in your power when you are overtaken by light and you can see everything as an opening to freedom." She wrote that almost exactly a year before she died.
Wow, what wisdom there. You know what I mean? The depth of what she was receiving. And I know now that you use the journal just to continue tapping in, but you also share her wisdom.
In the book, yeah, because there's so much here. I mean, the crazy thing about the journal is that she'd always been a journaler. She had all kinds of little journals full of, boyfriend drama and all that kind of stuff. But this was different because a year before she died, she said to me, "Mom, I keep getting these little phrases in my meditations. What do I do with them?" I said, "Write them down." I didn't really think much about it. I mean, things like, "Give fearlessly and you shall never want." I mean, wow.
Yeah. The wisdom. I mean, she was so young, but she was so wide open. She was chosen for this.
Absolutely. I love this one. "Heartbreak is a learning process. You can get your heart broken a million times and not learn how to love again, or you can listen to your own heart and learn in a second."
Holy shit. Excuse my language.
That's what I felt. And when I first got this notebook, I mean, I remember sitting on the airplane flying back to California from the East, and I hadn't even really looked at it. And I started looking at this notebook, and all I could do was hold it close to my chest. I couldn't even process what was in it. Of course, I was still in shock and I was grieving, but I knew it would be important, and I didn't even know what most of this meant. And energetically, Linda, I was not ready to receive the full kind of whammy of what's in this notebook. But I could feel it's almost like it's so high vibe that it has to be like absorbed in little pieces. And I put a little bit into the self-care book, and I put a little bit more into the Free Spirited book. But I realized just for me to process it, to really get what each of these things means, it's amazing.
Yeah, it's such a gift. It's almost like energetically she knew she'd be passing and knew she needed to leave this stuff behind for you and for others.
Well, she did. And the day before she collapsed, she called me up. And of course, this is typical of me at the time. I was about to have a dinner party. She said, "Oh, honey, I can't talk. I have guests coming." She said, "No, sit down. You need to listen to this." She's very direct. She said, "I think I'm about to have a really big seizure." I said, "Oh," and I stopped everything. I said, "Well, let me take you to the emergency room." Nope. She said, "They're just going to mess with my meds, and I don't want them to because they make me feel closer to God." Okay. I said then, for reasons I'll never remember or understand or even know, "What about this experience is related to your purpose in life?" And she said, "Oh, thank you for asking, Mom. I get it. I am meant to heal women and girls with panic and anxiety and depression." I meant to heal people. That's what this is. Oh, I feel so much better. I'm so glad you asked. Did I remember that conversation the next night when she was acting a little weird at dinner and I got her a ride home? No. I was too focused on myself and my agenda. So, here we are. And the whole thing was like a perfect storm. Bringing Teal into people's consciousness at this time, right now, in this year and in this place. This is the time for Teal. And when I first wrote, it took me 8 years to write this book. And when I first wrote it, I really was not sure how to end it. And I lived the pieces of this book and all the different ways the healing is manifested, through my blogs. I was writing. And then I began the self-care work. And then I began the podcast. And then I started this Facebook group to go with the podcast. Okay, that's innocent enough. Great. And I got up to 10,000 members and felt very good about myself. And then one day I wake up and there's 2,700 people who want to join the group. I'm like, well, that's a mistake. That must be a bot, one bot generating 2,700 fake profiles. I look, Linda, they're all real people. They're all busy women who need this group. The next day, there were 5,000. Over 6 weeks, we got more than 100,000 people wanting to join this group. It just exploded. And I immediately got a team of moderators together, and we started going through every single application, deciding what was fake and what was real. It's a big deal with Facebook groups. And we wound up with 55,000 women in this group. And they were all sharing the most incredibly deep personal things. I think my husband might be having an affair. How do I ask for more help at home? My kids don't like me. It's only when we get together and we help each other that we can really solve the deep stuff. It's only when we share, when we open our hearts, when we risk becoming vulnerable, that we can really be touched and in turn touch others. And, I think that's really consistent with Teal's gift.
So powerful. It's like a virtual healing circle, and our energy is calling them in. And I'm part of that group. So I always love the messaging. I've been in there for quite a while. We're going to take another break, Suzanne. And when we come back, I want to talk about a moment that I know is probably deeply painful and deeply healing at the same time. And that's about the moment you connected with a young woman who received her heart and kidney. So
yes.
We'll be back in a moment, my friends. I am with the one and only Suzanne Falter, author of The Self-Care for Extremely Busy Women, and the book we're talking about today that is really just touching my heart, called Free Spirited, How My Daughter Healed Me from the Afterlife. Learn more at SuzanneFalter.com. We'll be right back.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
We can all use a little more peace and joy in our lives. Don't you agree? Counselor, best-selling author, and self-nurturing expert Kelly Grimes of CultivatingPeaceandJoy.com is passionate about empowering overwhelmed and exhausted women to live with more peace, joy, and meaning through the practice of self-nurturing. Through her experience working with individuals, speaking, providing workshops, and teaching professional and leadership development to forward-thinking organizations, Kelly knows that nurturing peace in the world begins from the inside out. That's why she created the free Cultivating Peace and Joy mobile app that brings you beautiful self-nurturing reminders, guided meditations, empowering practice tools, and daily prompts with an inspiring question to guide your daily self-nurturing practice. Download your free Cultivating Peace and Joy mobile app today at cultivatingpeaceandjoy.com.
More than 24 million Americans have an autoimmune disorder, and that number continues to grow. I'm Sharon Saylor, and I'm one of those 24 million. To put that number in perspective, cancer affects about 9 million and heart disease up to 22 million. That's why I've brought together top experts and those thriving regardless of their diagnosis to bring you the latest, most up-to-date information. Join me, Sharon Saylor, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, for the Autoimmune Hour on Life Interrupted Radio to find out how to live your life uninterrupted.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that. Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Free your mind with OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
I am honored that you circled up with myself and my special guest, Suzanne Falter. So, Suzanne, you had shared in talking about Teal's journey that a young woman received her heart and kidney after her death. What is such a sacred gift, right? It sounds just like Teal, right? Like the healing continues. How much longer after that did you have the opportunity to meet the young woman, and what was that experience like?
You know, it was really interesting. We didn't actually meet till 4 or 5 years after Teal's death. And honestly, it was that thing I was talking about, that energetic preparation had to be in place. It had to be in place because this was a very, very deep heart connection we had, pun intended, I suppose, or not intended, with this experience. So because she was obviously changed by it, I was changed by it, Teal was changed by it, in her evolution in the afterlife. All of us who were connected to Teal were. The recipient's mother and family was. I mean, the ripple out is wild. But then this young woman's dream was to become a person who did diagnostic imaging for people. And she went to school. She could not go to school while she was sick, and she was sick for 8 years from age 19 with congestive heart failure. And that congestive heart failure made her, weak and tired, and she just couldn't sustain getting an education. So the first thing she did was go back to school, and she got this license or degree to do this imagery work. And the first thing, and she wanted to do imagery of people's hearts. So her heart became a subject of great fascination to her and all of the other students, because they were all looking at all these hearts. And one of the things, this is just sort of a technical note, one of the things she told me when I met her was that Teal's heart and her heart were a perfect fit. And often with heart transplants, she says it looks like Frankenheart. You have the top part, which is the original recipient's organs, and then the whole bottom of the heart is the donated heart. And you might get a much bigger man donating a heart to a much smaller woman, that kind of thing. But she and Teal, direct fit. She said it looked like a perfect heart, and in her case it was. And she reached out to us. My husband had written a letter describing Teal. We'd written it together before, maybe a year after her death, when the organ procurement agency, which was the people who took Teal's organs and found new recipients for them, they said, we can connect you if you would like. We can attempt to connect you with the people who received her organs. And so we wrote this letter and we sent it off. We didn't hear anything for a year. And then one day I get this email and it says, letter from Teal's heart and kidney recipient. And here is this young woman telling me in this beautiful one-page letter all about her life and what she now intended to do with her life because she was no longer sick. She says, having a transplant truly changed my life in every way. I now have the energy and stamina to do the things that for so long I wasn't able to do. I love the outdoors. I love my animals. She talked about wanting to travel the world. Well, of course, that's what Teal did. She wanted to have animals and a farm and build a home and get married and have this degree and do this healing work herself, which she does in a hospital in Northern California. She said, she's part of me, and I'll be forever grateful. I wish you peace and happiness and hope it may bring you comfort in knowing I'll never take for granted what she's given me.
Oh my God, I'm got tears in my eyes.
I get tears in my eyes too.
Oh.
Good. I'm glad you're crying too.
Oh my God, I have goosebumps because it's like she's feeling and experiencing Teal's healing energy, right? like all those desires, you got Teal's energy within her helping support her dreams.
Teal's energy was very, very profound and strong. And one of the things that I like to talk about from the book, I really got into a deep friendship that I talk about in the book with her mom. And her mom and I actually went on a healing path together that was pretty incredible. One of the things she told me that just blew me out of the water was that, she went through so much with this young lady, almost died 3 times. She had to see her child really suffer and go to the edge of life like that. So Debbie, the mom, told me that when Emra, well, that's the young woman's name, when she was in the recovery room after this heart transplant, Debbie walked in and she saw a glowing field around Amra's body. Amra was asleep. And she looked at it and she rubbed her eyes. She couldn't believe it. She said it was as bright as a pair of headlights. And then her sister walked in and said, wow, she's glowing. And she's like, right? Do you see it? And they both saw it. And the nurse is like, oh, well, she has circulation. Her skin is nice and pink and rosy. They're like, no. This is different. And there's that Teal energy. And it lasted the full time they were in the room with her until she went back into surgery for the second part of the transplant, the kidney. Isn't that a great story?
Wow. And to have them both experience that, see, stuff like that, I just believe we're so connected, but our hearts have to be open to see it. It's always, they're around us all the time.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You feel it viscerally, you like physically experience Teal through like the giggle and the tingles. Is that how you still experience it, with the tingles?
Yeah. A little more subtle. What I will say that I've noticed, and I understand other people who receive energy from the afterlife also have experienced this. First of all, she now communicates with my friends, which is crazy. I know. I have got a couple of really sensitive friends who, I don't know, Linda, she might appear in your dream, or, you might see her in a meditation, or somebody listening to this show. What I know is the tingly energy, I don't feel so much, but I was doing an interview the other day and she was just all over it. And I think she's a little selective. I'm not quite sure when she chooses to appear through the laughter. But when I do those healing readings, then she's really giggling up a storm. And that's more about me intentionally conveying energy. Although I can't say that that's exactly what I'm doing. It feels like what I'm doing. Let me tell you, when that laughter first came in, I remember I was in a restaurant with my son and she was giggling away through my body. He said, tell her to keep it down, would you?
I love it.
Yeah, I remember going to a spiral dance in wonderful hot springs in Northern California. And they had these cool spiral dances in the pools. And I was doing this spiral dance, and it was like a full moon. And it was just like one of those special spiritually hooked up nights. And maybe 20, 30 of us were all in this little spiral dance, and it was getting closer and closer. And the Teal laughter was going nuts, And when it was over and we were all walking away, I heard this guy say, did you hear that crazy laughter? It was giving me chills. My hair was standing up on the back of my neck. And it was just cool. I don't know.
No, it sounds so magical and beautiful.
Yeah.
And Suzanne, we're going to take our final break. When we come back, I want to ask you what you hope women or all readers walk away with from reading your book, Free Spirited. I will be back in a moment, my friends. Be sure to stay tuned. I'll be back with Suzanne Falter of SuzanneFalter.com. Get over there, check out her empowering blog, and grab a copy of Free Spirited. We'll be right back.
The best of the holistic, spiritual, and conscious world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Are you ready to experience the unshakable love and unleashed passion you really want? Great news! Discover what thousands of people are doing to transform their relationships in ways they never thought possible. And your partner does not need to participate in the process to enjoy the results you want in your relationship. Relationship expert and Aspire magazine columnist Stacey Martino and her husband Paul are the founders of relationshipdevelopment.org and Relationship U. They have successfully empowered thousands of clients with tools and strategies that really work to transform their relationship. Any relationship. And your partner does not even need to participate for their proven system to work for you. Transforming your relationship is possible, and it begins with you. Take the first step and visit relationshipdevelopment.org today.
Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
This is Kathy Beal, host of Celestial Compass, featuring astrology you can use. Celestial Compass points you to what's going on in the sky and what you can do with it down here on Earth. We also explore fun, effective, and cosmic tools for navigating this adventure we call life. Join me the first and third Monday of the month at 5 p.m. Eastern Time for Celestial Compass. It's enlightening, entertaining, and empowering.
The United States has the highest rate of incarceration in the world. At the Equal Justice Initiative, we believe mass incarceration has to end. There is this presumption of dangerousness and guilt that gets assigned to Black and brown people. We have to confront our history of racial injustice and commit to a new era of truth. There's something better waiting for us, something that feels more like freedom. Truth can inspire change. Please learn more at eji.org.
Your conscious lifestyle on steroids. OMTimes Radio. IOM-FM.
Welcome back. You're listening to Inspired Conversations. Suzanne, right before the break, we were talking about the book, all the experiences that you shared with us, and you poured your heart and soul and Teal's energy. I'm sure she helped you write the book Free Spirited.
Yes, apparently.
Oh yeah, I'm sure she was guiding your hand.
She's like, let me bust in here.
Let me
carry on. Carry on, Linda.
So what are some of the takeaways that you hope readers walk away with?
Oh, the big one is the unified field of love. After she died, I got that we all swim in the unified field of love, which is a powerful phrase. It's got an energy to it. And the unified field of love is the place where we connect. It's beyond our bodies. It's beyond our egos and our personalities. It's this sea of deep energetic interconnection. And it was really proven to me scientifically, basically, by the whole transplant experience, for sure, as it was proven to many people around us. But what I really know is that we are far more alike than we are different. That everybody you've ever had a conflict with, that everybody you've ever felt was, disrespecting you or, being unkind or being bossy or violating your boundaries, they're all your teachers. Every single person I had ever felt resentful towards in my period of healing, I was really sent to, go back and look at what the truth was. And the truth was often, I didn't walk away. I engaged in the fight. I got into thinking a whole lot of negative stuff about other people. I became judgmental and bossy. These were the lessons that actually Teal was often on me about in her lifetime, and then they became doubled down after her death. It was about letting go of the constraints of the ego that make me want to push and strive and not surrender. The big message I got again and again in my meditation and from Teal was just surrender. And on every single page of that notebook that I referred to, she wrote the words, just be. At the bottom of each page, just be, or be and What does just being mean? Well, just being means surrender to the void. Surrender to this idea that you are love, you are light, you are energetic bliss in a body that is putting up a lot of resistance. And resistance shows up as judgment, anger, fear, annoyance, grumpiness, in my case, bossiness, having an agenda you want other people to conform to. Flow is the space of trust, equanimity, balance, and just being. Being is a profound gift, but most of us aren't really there because we're preoccupied with all the stuff that keeps us busy. You know, when we're super busy, and I was a workaholic, when we're super busy, we don't have to feel, we don't have to see that behind all of that anger is fear. And behind that fear is profound self-doubt. Instead, we crank it up and we get more and more wound up and more active and more intense. And we lose track of the profound, beautiful, floating, clear space of just being. I'm not saying you don't have to earn a living and have responsibilities, but you can flow with it. You don't have to fight it. You don't have to worry about it. You don't have to do anything, but just be and follow the prompts.
It speaks to my heart because my daily mantra is my day flows with ease and grace. And
I love it.
Yeah,
I love
that's
it.
been my mantra for so long because I live the other way like you. So yeah, I think the last probably 12, 13 years, I've been focusing on being and what that means, like being present in my life. So many of us, as you just beautifully shared, we're not even present in our own lives. We are just going. And as you just so eloquently shared, it's just this sacred place of connection to something bigger than us.
Yeah.
And I love that statement, unified field of love, because you're right. It has this energy about it, like, oh yes, right?
Yeah.
Like that source
Yeah.
energy.
You know, she wrote in her notebook, everything is connected, but all you have to do is relax and go with it.
Yes. So it sounds like that was one of the many gifts Teal gave you and guided you on, was to bring you back to your spiritual truth, to bring you back to being and not doing and identifying as a doer.
Yeah. Yeah, because I couldn't do anything. For 2 years, I didn't work. I just lived on my savings. And I lived in a friend's guest room for free, a wonderful, generous, big-hearted friend, my friend Linda. And she helped me just sort of be and surrender to this path that Teal had given me. And, you know, Teal was a very simple person. At the end of her life, you know, the day before she died, or she collapsed, I asked her, hey, do you need some money, sweetheart? And she said, no, I have enough. I just bought groceries. Well, when she died, I found out she had $2 in her bank account. $2.
And that's how she just lived in flow and trust.
Exactly. And, you know, she knew she was going to get paid pretty soon. She said, oh, I'm fine. You know, she had her groceries. She had her rent paid. She'd cover her responsibilities. She was good. It's just, you know, extraordinary to me. So extraordinary.
It's a powerful, for her to be so young and to be able to grasp that, right?
Yeah.
That deep, the importance of being and trusting and flowing at her young age is what really blows me away, which just says she was an elevated spirit, you know, an elevated soul. She was born a teacher.
Yeah. Well, and one of the quotes in her little journal said, you're born to lead packs of people through spiritual life journeys. And now you're about to discover what that is. Surrender is the key to the unknown and desire. For instance, or for example, you got something you feel is totally unknown, like, what am I going to do with my life for the rest of my life now that Teal is gone? How can I make a living if I don't have any work, etc.? That was my conversation. Surrender is the key to the unknown. I just had to keep surrendering. You know, I really took that to heart. And desire, I love that because it's really saying, if you're deeply in desire about a person or a situation, or, in my case, it was all about desiring money, surrender and see what happens, because you will be taught, you will be guided, you will be taken to the correct lesson that unfolds from that experience.
Oh my God. So much wisdom in that one statement. It's so true, is about leaning in, trusting, and flowing.
Yep.
I have a question right at the end. I know we're coming to the end, but you mentioned a couple of times that you do readings. What are these readings and that you offer? And is it something that's on your website for people to look at, or is it just something you do occasionally? If you want to talk about that for a moment.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. It is on the website. I do a limited number each week. And, I just, part of my big surrender was to go with the flow. And the flow has led me to really understanding I'm a channel about purpose and situations and helping people get clarity. And sometimes I pull some tarot as I'm talking, and that's just sort of a little prop to help me demonstrate visually what I'm feeling and experiencing. Sometimes Teal drops in, sometimes she doesn't. It's all very much about bringing clarity to what is muddy or confusing and healing pain. I'm not saying I'm a medical healer or medical intuitive or anything like that. And I don't connect people with their dead relatives. I don't know how to do that. This is about taking your own vibe to the next level, feeling more at peace about your life, being able to relax into situations that's previously seemed really difficult or confusing or caused tension. It's what she said her purpose was. She said women and girls. Well, I actually work with everybody, but it's about healing the anxiety, the tension, the stress, the depression, or, whatever it is. It's about acceptance and release and surrender and getting there.
So beautiful. I want to invite everyone, please go to SuzanneFalter.com. Also, you can learn about her Facebook group. And if I believe the exact name is Self-Care for Extremely Busy Women. Is
right.
That the
Yep. If you just pop that into the search for groups, you'll land there. And there are women in there and non-gendered people who are sharing their feelings and sharing their questions. And, it's a beautiful space for healing.
It is a beautiful space. And I want to invite everyone to grab a copy of Free Spirited, How My Daughter Healed Me from the Afterlife. And Suzanne, it is such a joy to circle up with you again. I'm so glad we're reconnected. I look forward to sharing your wisdom once again in Aspire magazine as well as here.
Oh yeah, we got a goodie cooked up.
Oh yeah, baby. And I gotta tell you, everyone, we were speaking off air and Teal was guiding that conversation to the way it unfolded. We just giggled, didn't we, Suzanne? Like it just unfolded that she's going to write in the upcoming issue. She knew what the topic was because Teal assisted with that. So thank you for saying yes, Suzanne.
Yeah, that was cool. I got the topic just the day before we, we had that chat. And I was like, who's this for? And it wasn't clear. And boom, in we came.
Thank you, Teal.
Amen.
And I want to say thank you again, Suzanne. And until next time, my friends, choose love, choose joy, choose happiness. Blessings, everyone.
Thanks for listening to Inspired Conversations with publisher Linda Joy. Join our sacred space every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern and meet leading female visionaries, empowering authors, heart-centered female entrepreneurs, coaches, and healers. Inspired Conversations with Linda Joy is a soulful venue where guests share the obstacles they've overcome, along with wisdom and lessons learned on their personal journey that led them to the transformational work they do in the world. Inspired Conversations to empower you on your path to authentic and soulful living.